Hello, my name is Robbie. On here, I'm Templar Knight. Every person who believes in God and does not go to church has a story why. But it's said that whenever two or more gather in God's name, that He is there. So this is church. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. So tonight I wanted to talk about scary movies. I had a lot of stuff happen this week that just kind of said, nope, Robbie, go this way. You're going to talk about scary stuff this week. I had my little brother send me a picture of his kid in a pool. And for everyone who knows me, you know that I struggle with water. So it was, my first response was, look out for the monsters that could be in the water. And he was like, I got this, bro. It's going to be okay. And I was like, all right. And I realized that's such a cheesy response for me to have because I don't know if I'm actually afraid of water or if I've just convinced myself I am. Either way, that's my response. And then Monday night, I got convinced to play a scary game with some friends online. Didn't go well. And I had a real rough time sleeping that night because I don't do scary good. And then Tuesday, same story. Different group of friends convinced me to come play a scary game with them. And again, it didn't go well. And it really messed with my head. Again, I had a rough time sleeping, so I've been really tired this week. And it was Wednesday morning when thinking about all this that I decided I need to talk about scary movies. So I went, sat down, did my usual research, did my planning and my thinking, and got the gears smoking in here because I don't watch scary movies anymore. It has been a long time. So I had to go and look into some stuff. And I basically decided that my first step to understanding a scary movie, in my head, would be to analyze it, step by step, what makes a scary movie. So I did. I read the synopsis of a few movies and did some thinking. I realized, okay, for the most part, they follow the same rules. At the very beginning, everything is normal. You've just got a group of people doing whatever. A group of young adults, teenagers, whatever, college kids that are going somewhere on some adventure, just living their best life. And it is normal. They don't see anything wrong with what's going on. It's just people being people. Most scary movies start out pretty normal. But then someone gets a sense that something is not right, that something bad could happen. That's me. I'm the guy who's always saying, there could be monsters in the water, be careful. I'm always that person with that sixth intuition saying, guys, we probably shouldn't go that way. Let's not go explore the creepy basement. Let's not go into the cave. There's always someone who has that idea. But they don't listen because it's group mentality and they're just out living their best lives, doing their thing. And then all of a sudden, the monster strikes. Now, whether this monster is a person or a creature or an alien, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It strikes. Sometimes it gets someone, sometimes it doesn't. But it lets them know, I am here and I'm after you. So then after they've shown, hey, this is the monster, everyone scatters, they freak out. Now the monster kind of disappears after that first attack. It goes away and you don't see it for a while, and it'll sneak around and it's hunting people and it's scary, and everyone's like, don't go into the basement, and they do anyway. And then the monster comes out from behind the door and they're sneaking and it's hiding and it's scary because it can't just, well, I guess Jason could. Jason just kind of walked at you, but he always had the good jump scares because that's what makes it scary. The hiding and the sneaking around and the hunt. And eventually the group of people, the heroes, the protagonists, they are trying to figure out what this thing is. How do we stop it? How do we get safe? How do we get away? And they're trying to get answers. They need to find out more about this thing while it's hunting them. But slowly, it keeps getting them. One by one, it takes off the secondary character, takes out the third character, it takes out, just slowly starts thinning the group. Slowly, all of them are taken away. And then we come to the very end of the film. And I've always been fascinated by the end because there's always two endings. There's the ending where the last person, the hero, gets away. And they live to tell the story and they survive. And yay, good for them, we have a happy ending. But then there's the scary ending where they don't. The monster gets them. Gets the very last person. It's normally some big jump scare. But the monster wins and gets them all. Now, that's kind of my basis of a horror film. I haven't seen a lot of the new ones. Maybe things have changed since then, but that's a general idea, in my opinion, of how a good horror film goes. I actually attempted to watch one. It didn't go well. And I was sitting there thinking, why am I doing all this research on scary movies? How can I put God in this? Because most scary films deal with supernatural stuff and things that don't have much faith in religion in them. Some do, but I was trying to figure out where God wanted me to go with this. And then it kind of clicked in my head, because God knows that my heart is on this upcoming series. He knows that's where my mind is. And the reason I'm so worried about this upcoming series is because the first lesson is going to be the hardest one for me. To start this next lesson, I have to give my testimony. And it's going to be a rough one for me. It might be a little longer than usual, but for this next series to work, you have to know who I am, where I've been, and what got me here. So God knows that's what's on my heart. He knows that's where my head already is. And He made a very obvious connection for me. Because when I say testimony, for those of you who are not 100% familiar with it, a testimony has several definitions. It is a formal written statement proving or providing evidence or proof of something. So it's, basically like a review. If I were to buy something on Amazon and leave a 5-star review, I'd then be given a few bars to type out my testimony and my ideas on the product for other people to read. In a religious viewpoint, it is a public recounting of a religious conversation or experience. So basically what a testimony would be for me is, I'm going to go back and tell you all about my religious experience, my religious conversion, what happened to take me and put me where I am now. That's my testimony. That's my Google review about God's grace. But in courts they have people come forth and give their testimonies as to what happened on a certain date at a certain time concerning specific events. I hope I'm ready for it. So how does this all tie into horror movies? They are normally the exact opposite of each other. Almost to a T. I went through and was making notes this week. A lot of weeks I don't. I just fly by the seat of my pants and go off what I practiced and worked on. This time I actually got notes. You can probably tell because I'm looking over here a lot to read. What is a good testimony if it were to be in a movie? Something is wrong. People are suffering. But then there's someone there who hears about God and what He can do. Then all of a sudden, God proves Himself to be real. I think God is there. He's not hiding. He is there for anyone who wants to see. But oftentimes we're trying not to see Him. A lot of people, they'll just flat out try not to accept Him. They don't want to say, yes, there is a God. But God's still out there, trying to tell everyone, tell the whole world who He is and what He's done for us. And slowly, the group starts to find their faith in Jesus. And then at the end, that last person, the main character, probably you, find God and you're saved. Or just like in the horror movies, sometimes you resist and you get away. Now, I thought that was interesting because I took all my horror movie notes that I made and I wrote down the exact opposites. I'm going to try this and see how this works out. So here we've got my first note on the horror film. Everything is normal, just people having a good time. That's our horror film. Real life, something is wrong. People are suffering. And I say that because without God in your heart, there's a hole. Something is empty, and we struggle to try and find it. We're trying to fill that hole, and the only thing that fits there is God. And until we accept that, we are fighting time and time again, trying to fill it up with money, with cars, with people, with alcohol, doing whatever we can to try and fill that hole. But only God fits there. We move on to the second part of our horror story. There's that one person who gets the sense that something bad's gonna happen. So we flip it. There's one person that senses God and that something great could happen. Sorry, I just hit the wrong button real quick. Sorry about that. There's that one person who senses God and that something great could happen. And he tells everyone, hey, there's this God person. I think we need to take it seriously. Just like in the horror story. The third section. The monster strikes. Evil comes at our protagonist, goes after him, shows himself, often gets one of them and drags them away. Exact opposite. All of a sudden, God proves himself to be real. My head was bouncing back and forth from both of these extremes all day, just sitting here thinking about how much these two things have in common as far as complete opposites. The horror film versus the testimony, the story of someone coming to God. The next step in our horror film after the monster stroke. It hides. And it hunts them. And it seeks them from the shadows. God doesn't hide. God is trying to be everywhere for you to see him. It's us that refuse to look. Sorry, I'm just loving this comparison. Every time I see these pop up, it's just like, oh, they are completely opposite of each other. And the fifth part of the horror film. The people are trying to stay safe. They're trying to figure out what the monster is. Trying to figure out how they can get away. In the testimony, there are people who are refusing to believe and accept who God is. Because God's there. He's right in front of them saying, hey, look at me. Hello. But there are those people who just aren't ready. They're still resisting. We bump down to the sixth section of our horror film. The monster keeps hiding, keeps plucking out the heroes one by one, jumping out of a bush and grabbing them. They disappear. Sometimes you don't even realize it. What's the opposite? God is out there with open arms, letting the people come to him. Let me tell you, there is no greater feeling than to have someone say, hey, I found God today. Sorry, that phrase brings back memories because I've been there so many times, and every time it's amazing. Every time someone comes and says, I found God today. Nope, not tonight. Not tonight. Talking about scary movies, this is no time to cry. The seventh part of our scary movie. Slowly, every single character gets got. The monster catches them, the monster takes them away. People come to the Lord and they find faith and their salvation through Jesus Christ. Now, I want to go into that word there, salvation, because I hate church words. So, what salvation is, I mean, it's to be saved. People during a flood will hide on a roof, and the army helicopters will come, and those helicopters are their salvation. Those helicopters take them away and get them somewhere safe, get them away from harm. God does that with your life. A lot of times you might not even realize how dangerous your life can be until God gets you out of it. It is... I wish I could words gooder to explain to you what it's like. A lot of you know. You probably have the memories of the first time you gave your life to the Lord. It is an experience that no drugs could match, alcohol can't compare, social acceptance will never meet it. There is nothing that can compare to God's salvation. I wish I had better words, but I don't. Those who know what I'm talking about, they know what I'm talking about. Those who don't, I hope one day you do. Now we're going to go to the final point of my notes on how a horror movie works. Just before the movie ends, the last person is caught. Or sometimes they get away. Depends on the movie. How that relates to a good testimony? Just before a person's life ends, that last person finds God. Or sometimes they resist and get away. I like the horror movie comparison because as I struggle with putting my testimony down to write all the notes of the key steps, when did I first find out that there was a monster in the woods? When did the monster get my friends? When did I find out what that monster could do? But I'm on the other end of that horror film. When did God first show himself to me and prove that he was real? When did I first know his love? Ironically, I was not the main character in my story. I was, just like in the horror films, I was that kid at the beginning saying, hey, there could be monsters in the water. Because I was the kid who was going to church and saying, hey, this God might be real. I was the one warning my friends and talking to them and trying to get them to see. And in my social group, I was the first one to get got. And then I was on the other side, trying to get them to. Interesting point. Every single one of you is at some stage in your testimony. Every single one of you. You may be at the end. You may have already found your faith. You may be at the beginning. If you're here right now, you're at that stage of the movie where someone's saying, hey, there could be something in the water. Because that's me. Doing everything I can to get your attention. That's where God put me, and I would love to be a part of your testimony. I would love to one day sit back and listen to you talk about God's love and know that it was some goofball in a purple shirt on the internet that helped you find your way. One day, I want to hear your story.